Hey, this is what a cracked jewel looks like on a Waltham pocket watch. As you can see, I'm being pretty close here on this, but you can see that this side of the jewel is completely destroyed. So even though the hole in the middle kind of looks somewhat okay, the jewel itself is completely destroyed. So what I'm going to do is, it looks like it's burnished in as well, this little metal on the edges there, all along the outside, and it's this metal that wraps around to hold the jewel in. And I've got to push this jewel out, but before I do that I want to measure the size of that jewel hole. So what I do is I use metric jewel gauges to measure the hole size. Alright, I've got a different kind of camera on here now, and I'm just recording the jewel up really close. And as you can see on this side of the jewel, I'm gonna try to get a needle in there to look at it. There's a needle there. So that's the end of a needle, just to give you some appreciation of what it all looks like. And on this side of the jewel, it's completely destroyed. Right through here, cracks up on the top, and there's a crack right there, and it is completely destroyed. So in order to fix that, you need to get the as I told you, the gauges, the jewel gauges, and there it is there. So that's the very tip of a jewel gauge. Anyway, I'm going to go off camera and see if I can there we go, find out what gauge fits into this hole. I think this one here is to see how I'm moving the jewel. I'm actually moving the material out. So just before I go off camera here, I just zoomed out a bit, and that's a nice picture. So that shows you the jewel, that shows you where it's cracked. This is the jewel gauge here that I was trying to fit in there, and obviously it's the wrong size jewel gauge. And parts of the jewel are actually moving out. That's how bad this jewel is. So I'll end up having to measure the pivot to make sure I have the right size jewel when I pop this one out. Alright, that's the pivot gauge kind of leaning in the hole here. It's the best I could do. So, and what I did was I fit this gauge, which is I believe 0.16, into the hole, and it fits pretty much in there with very little end shake. So I think that is the size jewel I'm looking for to replace the jewel that's busted in a million pieces. So it's a pretty nasty crack in the jewel. And that's the best job I can do with my camera to do a digital zoom in on that jewel again. So that's the one that needs to be replaced. A little bit of rattling in the camera there, but anyway. So I've measured that jewel. It's I believe it's a burnished in jewel, because you can see the fine pieces of metal on the outside where it's burnished in. So right here. So what I end up doing is turning the plate around and pushing from the other side. Let's see if I can zoom on this, eh? Is that possible? There it is. Hey, I did it. Good stuff. So turn the plate around, and I end up pushing the jewel out from this side, right? And I get my seized jeweling tool out. The other thing I do is I always mark where I'm going to do the work with a little red marker. A little bit red marker provides me a reference point, so I don't end up pushing the wrong jewel out by accident and replacing the wrong jewel. I also have to pay attention to the depth that this jewel is at, so I measure that first in the seized jeweling tool to make sure I use the exact same depth as I put this jewel in if I decide to do a friction fit jewel in here, because my thought is that I may ruin the I'm not sure what you call it, but it's the where it's burnished in right here, this edge here. I might ruin that pushing this out, and I won't be able to burnish in the replacement jewel, so I may have to put a friction fit one in here. So we shall see. This is my seized jeweling set here. I've got some leftover stuff here from some other work. And so there's the main rig, not sure what it's called, but anyway. And there's a pusher here, like that. And I get a better angle on that, but it's a C's jeweling set. And then what I need to do is find the right one of these pump pushers to flat pump pushers to push the jewel out. So I'll measure for that and set it up, and I'll be right back. So I found the right pusher here, and it's a 12.5 pusher. So what I do then, and I measured the pusher within the where the jewel is, and I believe it's recessed in on this side, so I get to push it this way, and when I put the jewel in, it'll sit on the lip, because this side is much narrower than the other side, so even though it's burnished in. So what I do is I've got to get this set up properly. So I take out the pusher itself and put that in the end, like that, and then put it in like this, and I want to measure, see if I can get this in here somehow. Take that out first, maybe. Oh, wrong way. Wrong way. There we go. And that goes all the way in through the other side, just pushing through the other side. And so what I want to do is measure the depth. I think I want to measure the depth. No, I think I'll just push it out, because I think there's a lip in there, so it's not going to be friction fit, so I don't have to worry about the depth. I've got a big enough hole on this side, and that'll fit, I think, nicely in there. So we'll see if that fits flat and I don't have any issues. Nope, I need a smaller one, because I do have issues. So I just replace this stump here with this one here. Probably don't need the ring on that, but I'll leave it in for now. That's smaller because I don't have enough area on the inside to get that in clean without touching the lip where it goes in. So you need enough area on the side so that the stump here doesn't touch the lip here when you're trying to put pressure on it. So you do that, and that looks like it's good. And then I fit it in like so. And is that good? I think it is. And I just want to apply a little bit of pressure. I know that'll go all the way through. So just do this, and that should pop it out. Doesn't seem like it popped anything out here. Look at my depth. You know what? I may have a problem because it may be bottoming out on the other side, because I've got that. This here might be actually too narrow, and it's bottoming out on that side, so I can't use that. So I want to put that back where it was and pick another one. Let's try this one here, and gotta get the right side of it. Fumble, 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 and put this in here like so, like that. And does that go all the way down? No, I'm going to adjust this. I think I lost my ring earlier, so adjust that to be a little tighter. There we go. Move that up a bit. Make sure it doesn't go too far. There we go. Now I'm going to put that in there like this and see if that lines up without causing me issues. I think it does. And if you get in close and have a look, everything looks fine. And there we go. I pushed it out. So now I have a hole there instead of a jewel. I get to examine this side again and see if there's a lip in there, which I think there is. Yeah, looking on this side, it looks like there's a lip. And then when I move the jeweling tool over, you'll see all the remnants of the jewel on the bottom here. So you want to pick that up and get it out of the way. I won't do that right now, but so the hole is completely ready for the installation of another jewel. So I'll make sure I measure that pivot again, but I think I said it was 0.1 or 0.16, I think. Yeah. Was it 0.16? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I'm not going to pick a jewel that doesn't fit, so I gotta have to make sure the wheel, the pivot on the wheel here, measure the and that is, let me look at the watch again. I can't remember if this is a hunter or not, but if it's not a hunter, the minute one goes here, so this is not the minute, that is not the minute wheel. So it's this one right here, I believe. Ibadib, right there. So that would be for the, I believe that is for the balance, I think. Maybe not. We shall see. We shall see. Actually, that's not for the balance. Let me look. Let me line the top plate again up with the bottom plate and see what this is for. So this is what you do. You just take this like this, you line it up. All the screws line up perfectly. I look at which hole it was. It was this one here. So this is the hole for the pallet fork. So I look at the, not the pallet fork, but the, yeah, the pallet fork. If that's what you call this. So that is the jewel hole that goes in here for the pallet fork, because it all seems to line up nicely. And I have to make sure the top and the bottom are correct. So it would go like so into the movement. Let me see where the fork is. It's on this side, so it would be this way. And so it's the pivot on the end here I have to measure to make sure that fits. So what I normally do is I make sure the jewel is the right size from a width perspective, and then I place it right on the pivot to make sure the pivot sits there nicely on the jewel sits there nicely on the pivot, and I don't have issues with the size of the jewel, and then I can press that jewel in. Anyway, that's phase 2. So for now, I think I'll end this video for now, and I'll do phase 2 a little bit later. So it's always good to take a photo of the movement before you take it all apart, and if I look in the photo, I can quickly see the positioning of the balance staff here with respect to the escapement, and then the balance would be in here on the top. So this type of movement. So seeing that and looking at what I've got there with the 2 little screws on top means that this bottom plate here, I fitted that on like this to say, yeah, that's the right size, or the side rather. And so the pivot is the pivot right here that has to fit into the new jewel into the hole here. So that's the pivot size I need. I already measured the pivot of the previous jewel, but if I can't find that, I just have to search for the right hole size. So, and I can measure the hole size with yet another tool. Alright, this is the next tool you're going to need if you want to measure the size of that pivot properly. And you need to take that pivot and then find out which hole that it fits into in this ruler. It's a Burrell ruler. It's fully jeweled, and the numbers are on the side, and the numbers represent the actual size, like 0.13 millimeters, 0.12 millimeters, that size there. So usually when I'm making a balance staff, I'm just floating around 0.12 from 10 to 14. So I'll find that hole. So 0.24 is way too tight. It's just sitting on the top of the jewel. So very carefully remove it. That wasn't very careful. I'm not sure why things always happen like that when you're trying to be careful. 0.24 seems like it's the right size. So I put it in like this, move that around, make sure it goes into the hole, kind of not going into the hole right now, but 0.24 looks like it's the right size. This is a micro work, again, while on camera, so never a good idea. Here we go there. And is that the right size? I was sure that fit in before. Maybe it was 0.28. There's 0.28. That's 0.26 actually. So yeah, you know what? 0.24 was too tight. 0.26 is perfect. So it's got a little tiny bit of a lean on it, which is what you want. So if it's straight up and down and fitting tight, it's not going to work properly. So it's got just a little bit of a lean on it. 0.28 has way too much of a lean. And this thing moves nice and freely, so there's no problem. So it's 0.26. So I'm looking for a jewel that's 0.26 in jewel hole that's 0.26 in diameter. And just to note, there's a little pouch that this gauge fits into. These things cost about 300 bucks. These gauges are not cheap. So this is a burnished in jewel, so which means there's a little donut of metal around that hole. So you want to blow out anything that's in there. Have a look at the hole to make sure there's no leftover metal on the inside of that ring. And then I've got to pick a burnisher that will open up that hole a bit more. So this tool here, probably this one here, I'm not sure. You basically put it in the hole, and then you turn this to open it up. Turn it the right way, and that opens it up, and then you spin it, and you open it and spin it and open it and spin it, and that opens up the ring of metal that was holding the jewel in place. So this one is not big enough, so you got to pick a bigger one and size it. So once again, I widened the mouth on this. I'm trying to get really close here. It's very difficult. So I've widened the mouth on this so it kind of fits in there, but it's still not wide enough. You should do this with the plate sitting down, like so. And then you've got to take your hand in here like this. And again, my head's going to get in the way of this video. But you just do this, and you make sure it's not in there too deep, because you don't want to widen the outside, the lower ring, and then you open it up a bit. Then you turn it around like this to open up that lip. It's kind of like the Alien movie where the thing goes like this and the alien comes out. That's my alien sound effect. So you do that, open it up, and that should provide like that, should open up that lip a bit. So I'll work on this to open it up. That way when I put the jewel in, it's going to fit right in that setting. I'll see if I can get a close-up on that setting too after. Alright, that's what that setting looks like, right where the red is. And you see how the top part has opened up, and the bottom part is where it should be. So when I drop the jewel in, then I'll burnish in the top part, so with the tool I have. So I took this, I'm not sure if I can do this with the camera on, but I took this tool. I'm trying to see where I am here, left, right, center. There we go. I put that tool in the hole and I twisted it around, and that opened up the lip on that. So that was put in the hole, twisted around, and that opened up the metal on the top of that. So that's how you open up the mouth for burnishing in a jewel. Now I gotta go find the right jewel. Alright, there's a 26-200 which seems to be, it sits nicely on top of the pallet fork, but when I pick a 26-200 and I put it in the jewel hole, I find that it's just ever so slightly too big. I can't tuck it in underneath the burnishing metal. So I'm going to see if I can find a 26-180 instead. Because I like the 200. The 26 is absolutely perfect. And I use Rodico. I just put the pallet fork on the Rodico so I can keep it out of the way. So 26-180 or 190 would be. So 26-180 is the right size. So I think I had this thing running while I was farting around with it, but I may be able to edit it out. So 26-180 fits perfectly. No big deal. So look, it sits right in there nicely. Let me just get a close-up. Okay, there's the jewel sitting in the hole, and all I need to do is a little ring of metal on the top there. I need to carefully get my other set of burnishing tools that look like this, I believe. Yeah, and they're hollowed on the tips, and I need to use these to push that metal onto that jewel so it's sitting in there nicely. So the good thing is when the jewel is sitting in a position like this is that it get that down a bit, is that the pressure is coming from the top of the gear, so it's pushing down on it. So, and on the other side of this, I'll flip it over after I get it in, but the other side of it is fairly flat, and there's a rim on the other side that's holding it, like a ring that's holding that jewel in place. So there's no big problem with that jewel staying where it is, and that's a beautiful fit there, nice tight fit. So there's the jewel. Metal's wrapping around the jewel nicely. As you can see, it's pushed in there nicely, and I burnished that in. And I use this tool, as I said before, this tool here, and then you circle that, and this tool is a dome on the inside, so it just basically burnishes that jewel back in. And if I flip it over to the other side, there's the other side, and you can see if I can get a reflection there. There we go. So that jewel's in very nicely. It's flat against the surface, so when I put the gear back into the movement, this will push down on this jewel, so the jewel won't pop out, but the burnishing of the metal on the outside keeps that jewel flat. So that's what that's all about. So that jewel is officially replaced. Looks pretty good, and it's all ready for me to put the movement together. The big question here is that, like I showed you the other one, this other jewel here, I still have to determine whether I really need to replace this or not, because it may also need some I can look at the hole and see if that's still a hole or whether I've got other issues. So anyway, that's it. So maybe that's the end of the video.